Hi, Dana.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. Get my video on. Sorry, I'm a bit of a hot mess with moving.
What do you mean moving?
I moved into a new house.
Oh my God. What
Telling
and
you
you're
about
in
that.
this you're in the middle of that?
I am.
I don't know when you're moving, but I'm busy that day.
Don't worry, it already happened. Hey, Kelly.
Hi.
So that's exciting.
Yeah. So we closed on Thursday, moved on Friday, and in the midst of finding and unpacking everything.
All right. So do you have cable TV set up and a bed?
Yes.
All right. Then the rest will follow.
How's your week going, Kelly?
It's going. It's been kind of a slow week.
All right. Well, hopefully you'll get some good tips today.
We'll try. Are you seeing things slowing down also, Dana?
I would say it depends on what neighborhood you're in.
Right.
There's definitely an increase in inventory. So you don't see like that 25 offer, kind of situation.
Right.
Starting to see a few more price reductions. So I feel like numbers are becoming a little bit more realistic. But this is also kind of like a weird time, right? Because people could actually go on vacation this summer. Kids are out of school. So I feel like people really wanted to go away.
Yeah.
And now people are coming home. The kids are going back to school. They don't know if they're going to be at home. Are they going to be at school? Are they going to be part-time? So I kind of feel like there's a little bit of this, like, I don't know what's going on situation.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation. I think that's very true. And I think that I'm certainly encouraged to hear about more inventory. I don't think we've depleted the buyer population by any stretch of the imagination, but I know there's some people that just became exhausted with the multiple bid situation, right?
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
if they can kind of jump back in and have a little bit more optimism about getting things done, that'd be great. Wow, that's a really good picture of Alyssa.
It is.
Oh, thank you.
Wow.
So we'll give it out one more minute.
Okay.
I just did repost on Facebook.
Alyssa, did you see Chris Malone's new headshot
I don't think oh yes, I did. I
in
did.
his email? Yeah, I think we're getting it looks really good.
I could definitely use a new headshot.
Yeah, I need.
Ooh, too close.
Jeremy does them for free the first Tuesday of the month at Keller Williams.
I know.
If you're ever
I'm gonna wait
down
till
in the
my sunburn goes down. I could use a little more hair too. You have any a wig or something? Yeah, but he's got a
Chair,
power. He's
Dana.
got that power thing going, Dana. He's standing there with his arms crossed like this. Or this is Chris Malone, our manager, and he's got this like wry smile on his face. But
nice. All right, let's get started. I would love to have Jim and Alyssa, if you guys wouldn't mind, just quick intro about yourself for those that maybe don't know you. And then we can kind of jump right into mortgages.
cool, Alyssa, ladies first.
Sure. Alyssa Chapnick. I'm with Finance of America Mortgage. I have been here for 3 years. I've been doing mortgages for just over 5 years. And I got into this crazy industry because my family is in real estate. So grew up with real estate.
Love it.
Your volume is cutting in and out again. So are you hearing that too, Dana?
A little bit. I wasn't sure if it was like me or my internet, but
Okay.
I got it.
I moved it closer. So if it
Okay.
happens again, just let me know.
I will. You can count on me. So Jim Goldstein, 35 years in the mortgage business. Before that, I was a school teacher for 13 years, getting paid nothing, and never looked back. So I feel like that educational component has always been a piece of how I like to approach the business. And I think our job as lenders is to really help people understand the process. Not only do they not know the answers, they usually don't even know the questions. So there's a lot of education. I would say that's really kind of the foundation of how I like to go about doing this. I've had every different job in the mortgage business that you could want. I've managed, and then for the last several years, have just been working directly with referral partners and customers. Should we say a little bit about our company too?
Yeah, please share a little bit more about Finance of America. For those of you that don't know, they are one of our in-house lenders and very much a partner. The great thing about Alyssa and Jim is they get it. You're doing showings on the evenings and on the weekends, and they're here to help and support you guys.
Yeah, so I really love this company. In 2015, one of the legacy companies was called Gateway Funding. Dana remembers that name. Was acquired by the Blackstone Group, which is a very, very large hedge fund private equity company. So it gave us a lot of financial strength and backing. But at the same time, they understood that we work like a family. We're like a family-owned business. We're very high touch. We have local branches, and so to me, it's the ideal combination. They can buy us all the tech and all the marketing tools and all those, get us great product. But at the same time, they let us operate, in a very high touch way where we're really, part of the transaction. And we love our relationship with KW Philadelphia. It's a true partnership. I've been in many of these where, frankly, the realtors didn't really treat it like a partnership. They just didn't, and this group does. So.
Yeah, so for those that maybe don't know as much about mortgages, typical products that Finance of America covers and can offer clients, Jim and Alyssa. So you have FHA, correct? Conventional, VA. What other ones should we make sure everyone knows you guys have?
Alyssa, are you on it? I see you're muted.
Sorry, I just had to email Chris the link. He called me.
Oh, okay. Our Chris.
Yes, our Chris. I'm sorry, our manager. The only other one that I could think of is USDA. Not really that common in Philadelphia, just because of the nature of the city. So that's more like for suburban areas where if the property is in a USDA approved area, they could put as little as 0% down.
Awesome. And can we give some insight for FHA and conventional? What are we seeing as down payments, especially for our first-time home buyers?
Well, let me just jump in with one thing, Dana. Alyssa's very used to being interrupted by me, but we also have a sister company called Finance of America Commercial.
Okay.
So that's not what I would call a standard mortgage product, but if you have investors who are, they want to buy it, they want to form an LLC and buy multiple investment properties, they want to fix and flip, or they want to buy and hold, we have a whole suite of really, really excellent products for that as well.
That's great.
We also can do renovation loans. So if you may have heard of, the 203K product. So if somebody wants to buy a property and fix it up and live in it, we can do that as well.
That's great to know for anyone working with an investor. So you have the commercial line product as well for LLCs and also fix and flips with the 203Ks. So guys, if you have questions or buyers looking at those types of products, it's really important, probably even more so than residential, that you connect with Jim and Alyssa, because those products can be a little bit more intricate, a little bit more tricky. We want to make sure that you are set up for success. So you'll absolutely want to make sure that they talk to Jim and Alyssa before you put your client under contract.
Alyssa, you want to talk about the down payments for some of the more standard agency type stuff?
Yeah, so previously, FHA was known as a first-time home buyer program. The reasoning for that is because people could put as little as 3.5% down. Now, conventional, you can actually put less down. So conventional, you can put 3% down, minimum of 3% down, up to as much as they'd like. And then with FHA, the minimum is 3.5% down.
That's awesome.
And VA, I think you mentioned VA too, Dana. VA for veterans who've got eligibility is 0% down. So they can buy a house for, and it used to be capped at like 400,000 or 500,000. Now they could buy up to, really high loan amounts. But if they're buying up to like 500,000, they can do 100% financing, no down payment. Yeah,
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and they're well deserving of that, in my opinion. But it's a great loan program. So
for those of you who don't know what a VA is, that is your veteran loans for people that have been in the service. So think Army, Marines, Air Force, any military capacity. Is there any other group that I should be including in that VA that qualify?
Coast Guard.
Coast Guard. Yep. So again, guys, if you have anyone that's thinking about utilizing a VA loan, definitely have them check in with Jim and Alyssa before you start showing them homes so we can make sure they're set up for success.
I don't know if in the interview, I think when you guys start to meet buyers, that if there's some casual conversation. So if it does come up that they served in the military, that's a great lead in for, oh, really? Are you familiar? Sometimes the people will come to you and they'll say, I'm a veteran and I'm interested in a VA loan.
Right.
They're very, it's a badge. They're proud of it. But some people are totally unaware of that benefit that they're eligible for. So
They take their own service for granted.
Yeah. So it's great. I mean, it's a great, and if they mention that, and then you can say, wow, maybe, did you know that you're eligible? Then you're already providing a lot of value as an agent right there.
Absolutely. So today is all about mortgages and what are some questions we should be asking our buyers to set us up for success. I know there's a ton of different ones, and whether you're a brand new agent or a seasoned agent, I hope you can learn at least one new thing from this conversation today. I'd love to open it up. Is there anybody on here that has a particular question about any of the loans that we've currently mentioned, FHA, conventional, VA, USDA, or 203K commercial loans? Mark?
Yep.
Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks. Thanks for joining us. What question do you have?
I'm on today because I do have a specific question. The past year, I've been working with buyers off and on that fortunately didn't lose income during the pandemic. They were able to work remotely. They had money in the bank. So they were in a pretty decent financial position. Right now, I'm working with some tenants who, just in conversation, we were talking about different things and what their goals were. And they said that, well, we do intend to buy maybe in a few years. They said that they wanted to buy now. If they could buy now instead of renting, they would. But the lender that they spoke to said, well, you drew unemployment during the pandemic, so now you have to wait for two or 3 years before you're going to be eligible for a mortgage loan. Is that the industry standard now? Or is the industry sort of like looking at 2020 as an anomaly and saying, well, if you're back to work, doing the same stuff, do we look at 2020 as an anomaly, or are we looking at that as sort of starting from zero?
Great question. Who wants to take that one?
Tell them to call Alyssa.
So
Yeah.
it's going to depend. It depends on if they're
Great answer.
salaried, hourly, 1099. Ultimately, it's going to depend. If they are salaried or hourly, actually anything, we cannot use unemployment income at all. However, if they had any type of income that was on the books, W-2, 1099, we are able to use 2020, we'll look at 2019, and then we'll also look at their current year to date.
Okay.
And that's how we'll come up with the income.
Think of it this way: if they're on unemployment, should they be buying a house? If they're back to work, call us.
Well, they're gig workers. They're
Yeah.
both performing artists, actors. So 2020, they dropped down to, almost nothing. It wasn't completely nothing because they did pivot and were able to do some stuff online. But now they're getting back to actually like getting out and performing in the real world. It's just that 2020, a lot of their income was supplemented by the PAU.
So if
The good thing is you're having those conversations with them, which is the most important part. And the fact that another lender said absolutely no completely opens the door for you to make an introduction to Jim and Alyssa and let them actually take a look at the finances and give them a plan rather than say absolutely no.
Okay.
I think that what I love about that question is that it kind of highlights the fact that I think some people do assume that if one lender told me no, then the answer must be no. But I think in the real world, there are creative problem solvers, and there are those who just want to talk to the next person because this one might be a little bit hard. So I think I'd like to put ourselves in the creative problem solver category, and also the fact that we work within a relationship with an office like KW Philadelphia. We always try hard, but we might try even a little bit harder to make these work. So I think that it highlights that fact, and that's a good thing for an agent to be able to tell their customer, and it shows, like you said, Dana, you're really listening to your customers well, and kind of getting down into the meat of the situation.
Great.
Mark, if you want to drop your cell phone and email in the chat box, we'll make sure Alyssa and Jim reach out to you and, are able to help you and connect with your clients. So that way we can get them hopefully a better answer.
Okay. I'll email you guys right now.
Perfect.
One thing I want to mention as a kind of a strong point of our team is that we have our own underwriter who is dedicated to our branch. And I mentioned that I've been doing this for 35 years. Tomorrow, I will talk to somebody who asked me a question that I'm not going to know the answer to. That's one of the things I love about this business. But, the underwriter is, for those of you who are newer in the business, that's the person who ultimately signs off on the approval. And so Alyssa and I are, we know the guidelines, but we can't sign anything. So if we have any questions about whether or not something will fly, our underwriter is amazingly accessible. And, there's some, I've worked in 35 years with underwriters who woke up every day trying to turn down as many loans as they could. And then there's underwriters who really, they are looking for ways to make loans work. And that's what we have. So she's our secret weapon. Not secret anymore, but it's another benefit of having a local lender that's structured the way we are.
Love it. Anybody else have any burning questions that they'd love to get out? We can all learn from it. If not, we can jump into more. All right. We're going to jump into what are some questions, Jim and Alyssa, we should be asking our buyers. We get a lead. They're interested in a property. What are some things that are really, really helpful and also important for us as good realtors to be asking our potential new buyers?
Alyssa, you want to grab that one?
I guess just to get like a basic understanding of their full picture. You're not just trying to sell them a house. You're not just trying to rent them a unit. You want to get a full picture of what they're looking to do and what's important to them. A lot of times I have people come to me, especially first-time home buyers, and they say, what's the maximum that I could qualify for? And I cringe when I hear that question because that is not the question that they mean and not the question that they should be asking. It should be, what is comfortable for my budget? What can I comfortably afford? Not what is the maximum that I could afford. So I always like to just make sure, same with Jim, we really pride ourselves both on education. And we want to make sure that the clients are not maxed out and they can't order pizza in on a Friday evening. We really want to make sure that they're comfortable with their monthly mortgage payment. And I think that that's also important for you guys to ask as well, just so you're not showing them homes that are way out of their price point. I actually just had that this weekend. Somebody called me Saturday evening. They needed to make an offer immediately. Ran a pre-approval for them. They submitted the offer, totally clear on all of the numbers. They woke up the next morning and said, I don't want the house anymore. Get me out of it. I don't feel comfortable with the monthly payment. So it's super important to get that up front before they start looking at homes to make sure that they're comfortable with the monthly payment and comfortable with the out-of-pocket cost.
I love that. One of my favorite questions is to ask people, how much are they paying in rent now?
Mm-hmm.
Would they like to pay the same? Could they afford more? Or would they prefer to be paying less every month? So that way it kind of gives me a radar of where they kind of feel financially on a monthly basis. And for those of you that don't know, there's a few factors that can really make a difference in your monthly mortgage. The biggest one is probably your real estate taxes. So if somebody tells you they're looking at houses for $300,000, that can look very, very different because of the real estate taxes. And a lot of times on Zillow or Realtor.com, they don't always give a good, clear picture of that to the potential buyer. So really, really important. I love that you said that, Alyssa, focusing on more about the monthly versus the sale price.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. To me, there's no shortage of numbers that we provide, and there's numbers, and we're great at numbers and acronyms, FHA, VA, USDA, numbers. There's really only two numbers. How much money do I need up front? And what's my monthly payment going to be? And I think that I think that all these are level setting questions that are just kind of doing a lot of asking a question and then listening, because what you're trying to do is get a feel for how much of an understanding they already have about the process, and how much what kind of pathway we need to take them down so that they get comfortable with what they're getting into. I like Alyssa said, when you focus on the payment, when one of the things I do with when we get a request for a pre-approval is, have you seen any properties yet? Is there, are there one or two properties that, could possibly be of interest to you? Because then we can come back to them with what the payments would be. And like you said, they could be looking at a $300,000 property with a 10-year tax abatement, and the annual taxes are, $600 a year, or they could be looking at a $300,000 property with $6,000 a year in taxes, and their payment's going to be, substantially different. So when they give us a property, we can provide them, not only do you qualify for this property, but here's a fee estimate. This is what your payment would be. This is what your total cash to close would be. Your down payment options would be this. Your closing costs will be this. This is how much money you would need. I'd like to flip it back to you on the real estate side. And ask you, when you do start to have these initial meetings and interviews, what's the understanding level, if you were going to put it on 1 to 10, of what their people's knowledge is of what they're actually getting into here? Is there a big steep learning curve to help them understand what they're really taking on here?
I find that there is a big learning curve. It's funny. So many of the people that I speak to initially in that initial talk, at the end of the discussion, they say to me kind of sheepishly, they say, well, okay, do I pay you? We might have like a 30-minute, 60-minute conversation.
Yeah.
And they say, do I pay you now for
And you say yes, right?
Like, like I'm a lawyer or something, you know? And they're delighted to find out that no, it doesn't cost them anything. And I often tell them, well, the first thing they should do after that conversation is speak to a lender, because the lender can answer a lot more questions a lot more intelligently than I can about that side of the process, and tell them what they can afford, because they don't know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I
fascinating
find,
to me.
especially first time home buyers, even those that are like super savvy and have, looked at everything online and watched the YouTube videos, there's still a learning curve. I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, they're still probably at like a 7 or an 8. But then I also have some, clients that are buying their second homes now with me, and they forget, or, the process is different now for them. So I definitely still think like people are always open to learning. And a lot of times it's so emotional that everything just kind of goes by in a whirlwind that they don't always remember step one, from when they get to the closing table. They're just like so exhausted and happy to be signing, 50,000 pages that they're like, we're done, right? It's mine.
Yep. So yeah, I find that to be very, and I'm not surprised by that answer. One of the things I like to say is, when I'm talking to a client for the first time, is, has anybody mentioned closing costs to you? And if it's through a good agent, they have an idea of it. But occasionally we get people who are like, no, what are closing costs? I really would prefer not to be the first person to tell people about closing costs, but I guess sometimes it goes that way. Something, this isn't in the category of a question, Dana, but some things, I think that one of the challenges for a realtor, especially if you're newer, is gaining trust by adding value, by showing, giving them knowledge. And so, there's a time when you can successfully move somebody over to the pre-approval conversation, but I think you have to earn some trust from them. If they first question they ask you, you say, well, you should just talk to a lender. I think that's premature. So one of the things that I think is good is there are some do's and don'ts that the earlier somebody in in the home buying process knows, the better. And since you guys are the first to the table, I think it's a really good thing for agents, and I think probably any experience level, but maybe in particular newer agents, to have a good comfort level with some of the things that people should know about their credit, some of the things that people should know about savings and moving money, and what is acceptable sources of funds. Some of them are just logical and a little humorous, like don't go out and buy a Maserati right now. But some of those are pretty good icebreakers, and I think that even though it's not in the category of what are some of the questions we should be asking, I think it's a good thing that every agent should do. Not only just because it helps you build trust, but the earlier that people know this kind of stuff, the better chance it is that they're going to do things the right way to help them get in the best position to get the loan.
I completely agree. If somebody is calling for information on a home and the first thing you say is, do you have money to buy this house? Probably not the best tactic, but finding out from somebody like, is this your first home purchase? And they say yes. And you get excited for them, like, oh my God, congratulations. That's amazing. I'm so excited for you. I'm sure you probably have a million questions. Is there any burning things that maybe I can answer for you right now?
I love that.
Comes off way more resourceful versus, what do you want to know about the house?
Yeah. It's listening, it's asking the questions and then listening. Chris Malone and I were on one of our top producing managers was being interviewed, and he takes an hour. He doesn't send an online app. He won't just, oh, here's the online app, fill it out. he spends an hour. He says, if you want to work with me, we're going to spend an hour together. And he really, digs in, and it's sincere. You're not just saying that what you just said because you think it sounds good. You really are excited for them, and you really come off with a great deal of sincerity because you really do get excited for them, and you really do want to help them, down the path of getting to the place that they need to be.
Yeah. And I mean, I can personally share, like, I literally just closed on a house of my own. And every time I buy a new house, it's a total reminder of the emotional roller coaster that is real estate and home buying, and how important it is that you as a realtor understand that the more you can prepare somebody for the ups and downs that are going to happen, the more successful you're going to be in this business. Everything from there's multiple offers that could come to the table, to things are going to come up in the home inspection, to your underwriter is probably going to drive you crazy and ask you for 1,000,001 documents, but just please get it to them as soon as possible. All these little tips and heads up are really going to make you a huge resource and also make the transaction so much smoother. Jim and Alyssa, do you guys want to add anything about maybe some of the common things that you see come up? Like someone goes through the pre-approval, right? And then they're under contract, and now their underwriter is looking at stuff a little bit more in detail. What are some of those red hot buttons that maybe surprise buyers, or we as agents should prepare them for, that might come up during this process?
I think for me, the biggest one that comes up the most is large deposits. Even if it's from their own accounts, for some reason, people think that every single day of their life, they have to transfer money from their checkings to their savings. So it's still their own money, but it just causes some red flags for the underwriter. Like, why is this person moving 15 times this month from their checkings to their savings? Or, their parents give them $3,000 and they deposit it cash the day before they go under contract. Just little things. But for the most part, we can use funds that have been in their account for 60 days. So we like to say, if somebody comes to me and they say, I have cash, I have no money in the bank, the first thing that I'm going to tell them is open a bank statement, deposit the cash, and wait 60 days. Then start looking for a place, then start going for a pre-approval, because we can't use cash and people don't understand that. So don't move money, don't deposit cash during the process. It just causes a huge red flag and a really big pain for them to have to deal with.
You brought up a great point. A lot of, whether you're a first-time home buyer, a second home-time buyer, anytime buyer, sometimes you will be blessed with getting gift money, right? We see that a lot where parents or family members are, willing to offer you some extra money to help you with your closing costs, your down payment, whatever. What are some best practices if your buyer is going to be using gift money?
Be upfront with your lender. They can walk you through the whole process. Don't start moving funds until you speak to your lender. So just a rule of thumb, we have to be able to track every dollar that they're using for closing costs and for down payment. So whether that's coming from their parents, their grandparents, their uncles, their aunts, cousins, whatever it is, we have to be able to trace those funds. So if I'm buying a house and my parents come to me and say, we want to give you $10,000 for closing costs,
Say yes.
we're going to need, say that again?
Say yes.
Say yes. And then call your lender. What we're going to need is we're going to need your parents' bank statement showing that the $10,000 was in their account, not that they deposited it cash the day before and then sent it to you. The $10,000 has to be seasoned in their account for 30 days. We're going to ask for 1 month worth of bank statements from them. Then we're going to ask for a check or wire confirmation, however they deposit it into your account, And then we're going to ask for your bank account showing the money being deposited into your bank account.
And,
So
and
really,
if I could jump in, if
Mhm.
they say, well, if they don't have that way, and their communication is there, then the lender, there's other ways that we can document it. Sometimes we can get a personal, it's called a processed or a canceled check, and that can eliminate the need if we're doing a conventional transaction. So what Alyssa, I couldn't agree more with Alyssa on that being, the number one thing that causes additional paperwork and customers having to do that is sourcing the funds. But if they talk to the lender, almost without exception, we're going to find a way to to make the documentation work. But if they don't talk to us and it's a surprise, then it's can get a little quirky.
So guys, when you're an agent and you're working with a buyer and you're like, well, how would I know if they're using gift money? There is a document that you ask your buyer to fill out. It's called the BFI, the Buyer's Financial Information Sheet. And typically you need to present this as part of the offer, along with your agreement of sale and disclosures. So on the BFI, your client's going to list all their assets and they're going to ask, are they using any additional money? They say yes, gift money, $10,000 from mom and dad. That's a great opportunity for you to have a conversation. Do you already have this money in your bank account, or are your parents planning to give you this money for you to use? And once you have that answer, that's something that's really important to be shared with the lender.
And I don't know if Alyssa or Chris would agree with me on this, but I would, if they haven't given the gift yet, I would prefer they not give it until they talk to the lender.
Yep.
Because I'm going to put the odds at 99% that they're going to give it in a way that's going to become problematic.
Or we're going to ask them
Agreed.
for something that they don't have at their fingertips after the fact.
Right.
So then they got to scramble around and give us something. So disclosure is the key. Tell us up front.
Absolutely. And, this is super personal. Like, people are looking into bank account statements, they're looking into tax returns. The best thing that you can do as a resource to your clients is to tell them to be completely transparent with the lender. The lender doesn't care if that money is from them babysitting or, selling products on Etsy or, a side hustle. They just need to know the details so that way they can make sure things go smoothly as possible. So more upfront you can be with your clients and be like, look, no matter what, if you literally were like digging through your couch for change, and that's how you found an extra $500, you need to be honest and tell your lender. That will allow, you're giving your client the permission, right, to be completely transparent and not be like, well, mom and dad might not like this, or might not, they might look at me funny if I tell them this is money from something that I'm ashamed of, right? Just tell them, just be honest. They don't care. They just want to help you get this loan. So just be honest.
Is their side hustle legal?
I
love mom and dad. Mom and dad
20
were
years,
into stuff nobody knew.
20 years ago, I had a large deposit and I asked the customer about it. He was on Wheel of Fortune, I think it was, and he won a jukebox and sold it.
Mhm.
So we had to get documentation of the sale of a jukebox. So we run into some pretty funny ones from time to time.
And we also may be able to help you fix gifts if they're coming from like things that probably are not like perfect. I had a guy once sell he got a cash gift for his parents. And so we created a bill of sale for a bagpipe that was worth money, and it was legitimate. That's what it was for, but it was cash. So,
Yeah.
we
When we
can
find
work
out-
with you. You have to tell us.
Right. If when we come in after the fact, sometimes what they've done just doesn't document for our purposes. So we'll have
Who
to.
buys a bagpipe?
Oh, Mark does. Mark's.
But
Is
they're
that a
worth
bagpipe
money, and that's
behind
what
you?
happened. And the guy got cash, and we had to create a bill of sale. Or he created it. We didn't create it, but it was totally legit. He had a picture of it, and there's a transfer and stuff. So
You're on mute, Mark. You're still on. Mark, you're on mute.
Oh, here we go. I might be selling my bagpipes if you've got someone interested.
keep the receipt.
Keep the receipt.
Keep the receipt. Get a
So
receipt and keep the receipt.
the other, I mean, we've seen, what are, how do the wheels try and fall off of a loan? And how can we together as a team try and prevent these things from happening? The documenting the source of funds is a big one. Job changes, can people change jobs? Yeah, but should they not tell the lender about it? No.
Yeah.
So, I think I know I've had
It happens more than one would think. Too.
It
just seems
happens
to,
quite
yeah.
often. I've had several this year, but
Mhm.
fortunately,
Same
in
here.
each case, there was that prep between the agent, the do's and don'ts. We have a document which we can share with anybody. It's if you're considering a job change, talk to your lender. So that would be the other example of when I like Alyssa's phrase of trying to bulletproof your transaction. It's the first thing I would say is make sure that your borrower is with a lender who gives you a real rock solid pre-approval. I talk to them on the phone and they sound like they're okay. They've run credit, they've looked at their income documentation, they've looked at their asset documentation, they've run it through automated underwriting systems that they have available to them through their company. And and they're experienced and they know what a real loan looks like. And as long as your customer does that, you are well on the way to closing. But some of these, not worth the paper that they're written on, pre-qualifications or pre-approvals are your worst nightmare waiting to happen. If you get enough of those, your top of your head's going to look like this. You're not going to have any air. What's left up there is going to be white. So that to me is the number one thing, is making sure that the customer is with a lender who really looks everything over, knows what they're doing, and the pre-approval is a rock solid pre-approval.
So as agents, you want to be sure if you're having a conversation with a potential buyer and they say they're pre-approved, there's nothing offensive with saying, that's wonderful. Could you please send me a copy of it so that I can reach out to your lender, look it over, and make them aware of the properties we're going to be seeing. If they are using a legitimate lender and they have a legitimate piece of paper, you can look at it and it'll explain what type of loan, how much, what their interest rate is, and actually who that representative is, their name, their phone number, their email. And a best practice as a realtor is to contact that lender and say, hey, I just spoke with Alyssa. I am going to be showing her houses this weekend. I wanted to introduce myself. We're going to see these 3 properties at these 3 price points. I wanted to loop you in case we need to write an offer this weekend. And have a conversation with them. Have you checked their credit? Have you gotten their tax returns? Have you, looked at their assets? Is there anything you still need from them? Because we want to set them up for success if we have to write an offer. Does that make sense to everyone?
And Dana, I was actually just going to mention that. I think regardless of if you're a listing agent, buyer's agent, doesn't matter. You should always reach out to the lender to make sure. Let's say you have a listing up that has 5 offers in on it. You should be reaching out to 5 lenders to make sure that each pre-approval is solid, that the process is going to go smooth, that there's no problems that could occur. And I'm honest with listing agents and buyer's agents. If somebody calls me, I'm going to be fully transparent with them. This one looks good, but this is probably at the top of their price point. this one looks good. They're going to need some type of seller assist or down payment assistance. It's important for the agents to know that in case, God forbid, there are any hiccups along the way.
You bring up a great point. If we have a client, we see this a lot with first-time home buyers, right? And the lender tells us they are going to need seller's assist. And we know in this market, that can be a little bit uncommon or hard to come by. So how can we set them up for success, knowing that there may not be a lot of options for them if they need seller's assist?
Great point. You know, we on the call, the team meeting, Alyssa brought up a PHFA product called KFIT, which will give up to 5% of the sale price towards down payment and closing costs. PHFA stands for the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency, and they generate revenue bonds that create mortgage money for Pennsylvania primary home buyers, owner occupied, and it's great money, great interest rates. There is an income threshold, which I think in the city of Philadelphia for a 1 or 2 person family is something like $115,000 a year. So it's not a low income program by any stretch of the imagination. But in this market, you know, that's a way to get some assist, because yeah, sellers don't have to pay seller assist because they've got another offer that's not asking for it.
So that doesn't have to be a first-time home buyer, Jim, just a primary purchase?
It's a primary purchase, and I would have to double check. I don't know that guideline off the top of my head. They do have some programs that are for you don't have to be a first-time buyer, but but this one you may. I'm not sure of that guideline. And typically, first-time buyer is defined as somebody who has not owned a primary residence in the last 3 years. So, and in Philadelphia, they also have what are called target areas. And typically Philadelphia is a target area. So in a target area, you just have to not own any other real estate at the time that you close. So, and again, even though I've been doing this a long time, I don't know anything. So if I get a question on something and I'm not sure of the guideline, I'm going to re-look it up. So I don't know if you know the answer off the top of your head on that one, Alyssa. We can double check that and make sure.
Yeah, I don't believe they have to be a first-time home buyer.
So that's a great option, guys. If you have a client and you speak to their lender and they say they're going to need seller's assist, and for those of you that don't know what seller's assist is, you know, that is money essentially that the seller is providing towards the buyer's closing costs. And if typically in that case, the buyer doesn't have a whole lot of cash available, and that is normally why they would need a seller's assist, a FHA loan is a great option for them. So again, that's something that Finance of America offers. So if you have a buyer that maybe doesn't have a lot of cash, maybe you're talking to that renter, right? That would love to buy, but doesn't have, 20% to put down. You can start that conversation and really be a resource. Number one, you don't have to have 20% to put down. And number two, there may be viable options for you, like a PFHA loan, where it can really help you out and offer that. Is it 5%?
3%.
5%.
No, 5%.
Oh, 5%. Yeah, but you can put as little as 3% down.
So 3% down. So let's say a $200,000 house, that would be about $6,000, right?
Correct.
And then that loan would offer them 5%, which is most of their closing costs. So it could be the opportunity for somebody that typically was renting, right, and needed first, last, and security to move in, could potentially buy a house for the same amount of money as if they were going to rent a new house.
Hey, Dana, I looked up the guideline, and if you're buying in a targeted area, which Philadelphia is, You do not have to be a first-time home buyer.
Okay.
But if you were buying in the counties, a non-targeted area, you would have to be a first-time buyer. phfa.org for all you, any
Okay.
geeks who like to read about mortgages. So
Thank you. That's great news. So a lot of
If
times,
anybody's having trouble sleeping at night.
so a lot of times we'll see maybe like if two people are buying a house together, one of them has bought a house before. So if they're buying it together, it's like, well, you couldn't qualify for that first time home buyer because somebody already had a home. This is also a great opportunity. So they could buy it together because, it, you know, as long as it's their primary.
Yeah.
All right. We have about 10 minutes left. Does anybody have any burning questions for Jim and Alyssa? Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
Speaking to buyers, I often tell them, you know, that it's a good idea to speak to a few lenders. Honestly, I don't know anyone that ever does. Usually people work with the first lender that they talk to unless there's a problem. And I tell them they need to get pre-approvals, get some pre-approvals. How do I address the question when someone comes back and says, well, I don't want to get a pre-approval because they're going to check my credit and that's going to lower my credit score?
Love that question. Alyssa, you want to take that one?
Yes. So once they get one pre-approval, they should have an understanding of what their credit score is. And then at that point, I would recommend going to other lenders and price shopping or asking them, hey, can you run me a quote? My credit score is this. I want to buy this purchase price and put down this amount for down payment. And without running credit, they should be able to give them a loan estimate, showing them what their monthly payment will look like, how much they'll need for closing costs, and what their projected interest rate is going to be.
I know every time that I go and get pre-approved, my lender offers me a copy of my credit report. So if they have been pre-approved legitimately by another lender, they should have a copy of that credit report and they could share that then, you know, as like a PDF to Alyssa and be like, you know, my credit is a 674. Here's my credit report, you know, that was pulled by my other lender. This is what I'm looking for. And they can, you know, see and not have to rerun it. Does that make sense?
And a related comment on that is that if they are getting their credit score from Credit Karma or from their Discover card, that's not their mortgage. It's not going to be their mortgage credit score. So I always call those credit score indicators, because if they have a 780 on, you know, from Credit Karma, that's an indication that they're probably going to have a high mortgage FICO score. But I think that's another area where you as a realtor can, you know, build some trust and give some value by helping the customer understand that that's not exactly the same. And they need to know their precise mortgage FICO score. So for the newer agents, there's 3 credit repositories: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. And when we run a mortgage credit report, we get a mortgage FICO score for all 3 of those. And the one that's used to determine their interest rate is the median or the middle score. So if they have 720, 730, and 740, 730 is their median FICO score. And so I think, you know, without getting into the weeds too much, the point is that you can help the customer by helping them to understand that score from Credit Karma is not a mortgage FICO score, and they're going to need an accurate score if they do decide to price shop.
Great question. Thank you. I want to make sure, Jim and Alyssa, if you guys could be sure to put your info in the chat, just in case anybody doesn't have it, that they can reach out to you.
Dana, who had the best questions? I think, was it Mark that had the best questions today?
He had some great questions today.
Hey, Chris Malone, can we get some Finance of America swag headed Mark's way?
Absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Oh, wait, aren't we giving away a free mortgage today?
Ooh.
Not today, but soon.
Very good. All right.
When the
well,
Fed lowers the discount rate to 0.
Kelly, did you have a question?
I was just going to ask Jim earlier, you were talking about, since I am a newer agent and I haven't worked with buyers yet, but just sort of building some trust with them before you tell them to go talk to a lender. You said there are some sort of talking points that you can bring up with them. Can you talk about what some of those might be?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that, I guess Dana would probably be a better person as far as just getting the conversation into becoming comfortable conversational, not like, hey, I want to sell you a house. How much money do you have? So just, being yourself and being, a good listener. I think that as the conversation comes around to what is needed when you get into a loan, giving them a little bit of information about credit, some of those little tidbits about your credit score, these do's and don'ts. And Alyssa, do you have that in a way that you can make sure it gets to Dana and she can share it out to everybody? Or
Yeah, I have one.
I mean, everybody says drop it in the chat, and I go like, I don't know how to do that, but so the do's and don'ts, where you're just helping them to understand a little bit about their savings plan, having the money, talking a little bit about, well, there's different types of loans. The comment that Dana made about, one of the things that you should understand is that it's not just a $300,000 house that might be your price range. It's taking a look at how the real estate taxes may vary from property to property. So you earn trust by sharing the relevant knowledge that comes up in the course of the conversation, I think is the way that I would say it. I think that a little bit about the credit, giving them a little bit of knowledge about the savings and sourcing of funds that the lender does. It shows that you're one step ahead of them, at least as far as what it takes to obtain the mortgage.
Yeah, I
Get them
think
to know you, like you, and trust you.
Yeah, building rapport, I think, is the most important thing. Especially when I get those calls or at a open house and I'm meeting someone for the first time and they really don't know me at all, I want to try and get to know them. It's almost like making a new friend, right? Like, hey, how are you? What brings you into my open house today? Oh, you saw the open house sign? Like, that's awesome. Do you live in the neighborhood? Oh, you at brunch? Where? What restaurant were you at? What did you have? Like, you're not even getting into the sales and the business of it. You're just trying to get to know them and have a connection with them. And once you kind of have established that and you kind of feel like, okay, like they're a little bit more comfortable with me, now I can kind of get into some of like the house and the mortgage details of it. So like, okay, what did you think of the house? Like, you like it? Okay. Have you ever bought a home before? No, this is your first one? That's amazing. Congrats. It's so exciting. Like, what made you decide to start thinking about buying? Like, oh, you hate renting and your landlord sucks. Like, that's great. Now you're going to be able to do everything the way you want and how you want. You want to take down walls or remodel a bathroom? You can do all of that. And they're like, yeah, and you're like, so, I know you said this is the first time, like, have you had the opportunity? Has anyone explained to you kind of what to expect? And most of the time people will be like, no, or they'll be like, oh, well, my friend just bought one, or yeah, I talked to this one lender, and that's a great opportunity for you. I like to ask, I'm like, would you like me to share some insight and knowledge with you? And that way it's not like me pushing it on someone. Like, I'm asking someone, do you want help? Do you want insight? And most people will say yes. And then that opens up.
Nobody does that, Dana. That's such a great approach. It's so disarming, and you have to say yes to that.
Right.
Once you have their kind of permission to share, as an agent, Kelly, I think you should be excited about how great it is to own a home. When the person is really ready, in my mind, people, who pay rent, who could afford to buy a house, they're flushing money down the toilet every month. That might be a little bit of a harsh way to put it to somebody that you're meeting for the first time, but I can kind of get away with it because, I try and use a little bit of humor. But the point I'm making is that you as an agent should be excited about what a great opportunity it is to be able to own a home. The appreciation of property, building of equity, stabilizing the principal and interest portion of your payment where rents are always going up, and having something that's yours where if you make an improvement to it, that you get to enjoy the improvement, number one, and the value of your asset goes up. And I'm pretty passionate about home ownership and what a great thing it is. I don't know a lot of really wealthy people who are renting. Everybody who's acquired wealth has started with some form of home ownership. And I think that, you should make sure that you're, aware of and hopefully passionate about all the different, benefits and advantages there are, when somebody comes into home ownership. And that is not to, minimize the fear factor of it, because it's scary, and so yes, it's an exciting time, Dana, but yeah, I'm a little bit freaked out about thinking about this right now too. And I think
And Kelly, you recently, like within the past few years, bought your home, correct? So, don't discredit sharing your own experiences. I remember how scary it was. I had a million questions, and then I realized there were a million questions I didn't even know how to ask or be prepared to ask. My hope is that I can be a resource for you and share with you some of my experiences, guide you through this process, and also kind of set you up for success in letting you know what questions to ask. And that's huge. The fact that you are there to not sell somebody a house, to really help somebody buy a house. It's a totally different perspective of this profession.
And the value that realtors bring, anybody who doesn't use a realtor, who thinks they can get it all done on Zillow, they're idiots. I mean, realtors bring such value, from road mapping to, what the transaction coordinators typically do of helping people navigate the process, making sure people understand what they're getting into. I heard an analogy that doing something through Zillow versus a realtor is kind of like the difference between finding out what's wrong with you on WebMD or going to a doctor. So, it's really, the value that realtors and lenders, not to put us, too far in the back, the value that we bring to people to navigate the most important, purchase that most people make in their lifetimes. I mean, I'm an old guy and I'm still doing it. I just love it because I really feel like we do important work together.
Agreed. One of the best analogies I ever heard, Jim, was something similar, but it was, if you found out that you needed open heart surgery, and because you could go online and YouTube and see how open heart surgery is done, would you really want to do it yourself? Or would you want a professional surgeon to actually be the one to do the surgery on you? And most of the time people are going to be like, of course, I want to legit.
I don't know, YouTube's pretty good.
And it's no different. You're making one of the biggest purchases probably of your life. Are you sure you don't want a professional to help guide you through this process? And it just sometimes gets people to open up a little bit more to the idea of working with a professional. Maybe they've had a bad experience with working with a realtor before. That's another great question to ask with somebody. Have you ever bought a home before? Have you ever worked with a realtor before? Right? And you can kind of find out if they have any triggers, if they've had a bad experience. Oh yeah, we were looking last year. Our realtor was horrible. We never got to see anything, none of our bids ever got accepted. So you can really set yourself up for success by coming to the table with empathy and understanding with that client to really help yourself be the best resource for them, right?
Absolutely.
All right, guys, it is 6:04. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you so much for joining us. Jim, Alyssa, thank you so much for your insight and knowledge today. Their information is in the chat. Mark, Kelly, thank you so much for all your great questions. Chris, I hope this was helpful. Thank you everyone for being a part of it. And I hope you guys all have a great night.
Good luck with your unpacking, Dana.
Thank you.
Take care.
See
Thanks,
ya.
everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye now.